Thank you guys for joining me here on the last segment of today's show. Just to quickly preview the Monday Night Football game that we have in store for us tonight. The NFL's two Texas franchises square off tonight to wrap up Week 11. Houston doesn't have to travel too far, obviously, traveling to Dallas to face the Dallas Cowboys. AT&T Stadium hosts its second major event over the last 3 days because they had the Jake Paul and Mike Tyson fight here. It was what it was. It was an event that happened in Dallas. So now the Cowboys have to change everything quickly and host this game between them and the Texans. The Texans enter this game on a 2-game losing streak and with a 6-4 record, while Dallas enters with a 3-6 record and on a 4-game losing streak. So someone is going to put an end to their losing streak tonight, and we're just going to have to wait and see who that is. On the Dallas Cowboys, Jake Paul now has more wins in this stadium than the Dallas Cowboys do all of 2024. Cowboys are 0-4 at home so far. So based on that alone, it plays into the Houston Texans' favor even more to be on the road for this contest. You don't really see that in the NFL, really. But also the Texans have been going through their own poor form. It's not just been the Cowboys and just how poor things have turned out for the Cowboys. The Texans too, have led at halftime each of the past 4 games, but have lost 3 of them of those 4. So they've also been struggling with keeping leads and playing a consistent game throughout the last 4-game stretch here. So that is something else to watch and see if they could at least improve from that in this game against the Cowboys. Also, they've been dealing with their own injuries. Stephon Diggs is now out for the entire year. The Cowboys too, both of these teams, I should say, have been dealing with a lot of injuries. Like I said, Stephon Diggs, DeMarcus Lawrence is still out. Joe Mixon was out for a good amount of the year. Dak Prescott is now done for the year. Kenyon Green, the lineman for the Texans, is done for the year. Christian Harris hasn't played at all. That's a name that I don't think enough people sort of remember, but he's a big part for this Texans defense, and he hasn't played at all this year. And Micah has been injured. Nico Collins has been missing a bunch of times. So the injury bug has stayed in Dallas, or really stayed in Texas for both of these two teams, and it's unfortunate to see, obviously, but now both of them are going to be squaring off in tonight's game. And looking at the Texans side of things in terms of injuries and inactives, there's going to be no Will Anderson tonight in that game. Will Anderson has been dealing with an ankle injury, so he is going to be inactive for this game. He won't be out there, obviously. And also on the Bengals side of things, or the Texans side of things, Kamari Lassiter, their young, promising-looking defensive back for them, opposite of Derek Stingley, he's also going to be inactive for tonight's game with a concussion. He didn't clear the protocol, so he is unable to go tonight. There will be no Steven Sims also for the Texans. He usually does their kickoffs and their punt returns. He will not be out there as well. So those are the big injury inactives for the Houston Texans. But the biggest positive for them, the best piece of news that they could have gotten at this point, was that Nico Collins is going to play tonight. There was no injury designation on him for this game tonight against the Cowboys, so he should be making his long-awaited return to the football field for this Texans offense. He was very much missed by them, especially by CJ Stroud, because I think with all the receivers, Stephon Diggs, Tank Dell, and all the new guys they have in right now, I think his relationship with Nico Collins has been the one that has, I think, elevated above the others. I think it feels like he has more trust and more of a just a better connection with Nico Collins. So the fact that he's missed so much time, I think now coming back into this game and hopefully he stays healthy for the rest of the year, is going to change a lot for this Texans offense if he continues the very good form that he was on before he got injured. I'm pretty sure he was leading the league in receiving yards when he got hurt, and now obviously it's Jamar Chase, right? But Nico Collins was having a great year before he got hurt, so that's going to be a great addition, a re-addition back to this Houston Texans team. Also, their defensive tackle, Mario Edwards Jr., was reinstated on Monday from his 4-game suspension. So he should be good to go back to play tonight, if I'm not mistaken from that. So those are two big additions back to the Houston Texans. But just overall, even though the Texans, I just wanted to say this on the Texans before I move on, even though they won't lose their division, obviously the Texans with the Colts, I mean the Colts just won a game. They're looking at least a little bit better, but again, I think the Texans are still going to win this division. And even though they will do that and they will get a top 4 seed, I think now at this point in the year, Houston really needs to get on a run here. There's been too much of, you win a couple games. There's been, of course, a lot of injuries to deal with, but I think they need to, start stacking some wins here and approach the playoffs in the best form possible for them with, getting Nico Collins back. Joe Mixon is doing his thing and staying as healthy as possible, hopefully getting Christian Harris back too in the near future allows you to start stacking these wins. And if they could do that, I'll feel a lot better about them going forward, because I thought they were going to be a big contender, obviously, if you guys remember from the offseason, but they've sort of, hit a little plateau here. So if they could get on a run here, starting with tonight, it would go a long way for gaining back some of that confidence, I think, that they've maybe had shaken over the last couple games, especially last week against the Detroit Lions. So now, moving on to the Dallas Cowboys here, looking at guys that they'll be without for tonight's game. For the Cowboys, there will be no Jalen Brooks, the wide receiver. He's out tonight with a actually coach's decision. He's not going to play because of a coach's decision, so that's pretty interesting. I had no idea. Jordan Lewis is also not going to be able to play tonight. He's inactive, and Deron Bland is not going to play tonight. He is still unable to return. CeeDee Lamb was added to the injury report, but he should be good to go tonight. There was a little bit of a scare there because of a back injury, but it looks like he's going to be able to go tonight. So, I mean, the Cowboys need a win, obviously, but with the injury to Dak and everything kind of standing where it is now, the off-the-field issues, too, with things that are said, ridiculous things. They would like a win, but I don't think it would serve them too much as it would, the Texans. So on that point, looking at some of the matchups that will determine tonight's game, there are some good ones, at least. There are some good matchups to keep an eye on in tonight's game, starting off with the return of Nico Collins going up against Trayvon Diggs. The Cowboys' number 1 defensive back going into this game and facing now the wide receiver 1 for the Houston Texans as Nico Collins makes his return. Is he going to be able to shut him down, considering this is his first game back in a couple of weeks? How much do the Texans, integrate him early and often? How quickly can they get him the ball, kind of shake off that little bit of rust there after missing so much time? That'll be interesting to see. If Trayvon Diggs, follows him wherever he may go, will be one of the matchups to keep an eye on in tonight's game. Then we have Joe Mixon, obviously with how good he's playing, going up against DeMarvion Overshown. If you guys still don't know that name, the Cowboys linebacker, he is one of the bright spots on this team. He's all over the place. He flies all over the place. He's quick enough to cover a lot of ground, but also he plays like a traditional linebacker, able to get in between the tackles, take on blocks, and disrupt the running game and things like that. Him being the middle linebacker and Joe Mixon being the running back, how often and how involved is he trying to stop this running game for the Houston Texans? Because that's been one of the most steady parts of this offense overall with the injuries to all their wide receivers. So is he going to be able, along with the rest of the defense, obviously, right? Are they going to be able to keep Joe Mixon under wraps and force the Texans to pass a lot more, not just to Nico Collins, but to some of the younger guys like John Mechie and Xavier Hutchinson? That'll be another one to keep an eye on. And lastly, we got Micah Parsons going up against Laramie Tunsil. Micah, in his return last week, had a strip sack on Jalen Hurts, and he really did everything that he could in that first half to at least keep it close. But then the game got away from them, and now he faces, again, another tough matchup here against Laramie Tunsil. But he got he had a good result against the Eagles last week and how good their offensive line is. So going into this matchup and the amount of pressure, honestly, that the Texans have given up recently with their starting unit is a little bit concerning. So this could be something Micah takes advantage of and tries to disrupt the game with maybe another strip sack or forcing them to just run away from his side of the football field and things like that. All those play a part in this sort of matchup. So I'll be interested to see how they do that. But ultimately, my prediction is going to go to the Texans. The Texans would have to try and find a way to really lose this game. They're going to have to try really hard to lose this game because, Cooper Rush going in there, things didn't look great last week with him and the connection to CeeDee Lamb. I don't really expect it to change that much more. Even with the loss of Will Anderson for this game, I think the Texans still have a great football team, enough to at least beat the Cowboys. So I'm going to go with the Houston Texans. I think Nico's return will be huge for CJ Stroud. I'm hoping they get him the ball early and often to kind of get him more involved right away, and it'll open up more of a lane for John Mechie, for Xavier Hutchinson to not draw so much attention, for Tank Dell also. If you got a guy like Nico Collins back, that is someone that they have to keep an eye on. So maybe one of these guys gets a better matchup overall. And Mixon, I think Mixon could have a good game. We talked about it all year long. The Cowboys don't do well stopping the run. So Joe Mixon is primed for a big game. That's why that matchup with Overshown is so important. If they're able to stop him, it could give him a chance. But the way things have gone this year, Joe Mixon is in line for a big game. So with that being said now, it is time for Monday Night Football. There's only about 35 minutes left here until the start of Monday Night Football. So we're going to close things down here on the Chip Shot Football Podcast. Thank you guys for joining me on today's episode. And please remember to like, follow, and subscribe to the show as well. And follow the network on all forms of social media. And if you want to see more of the Chip Shot Football Podcast, please check out the YouTube channels, the Podcast Network channel, the GSMC Sports Network channel as well for more content around the NFL and more coverage as well. With me, Manny Maradiegue, as your host, reminding you to join me every weekday as well for these live shows that we do each and every weekday. But for right now, we are signing off. Go watch Monday Night Football, and we'll be back tomorrow to discuss everything on Monday Night Football, but also continue to talk about Week 11 in the NFL.
Let's go. I wake up to a little bit of drool on my pillow, feel like it's gonna be a bad day. Yeah, I'm tired of shit, and the coffee ain't hit yet, damn, ain't that great. I don't wanna go to